So the global relay continues. It's our pleasure to take over from our colleagues. And for the next 50 minutes, we will be taking you on a journey of food. You've heard about why it's important for us to pay attention to the food we eat and why we need to also keep an eye on transforming the system that produces, distributes, transforms, processes food that we all consume. Food is one of the few things that connects us all as a global body of humans. We all eat food. We need food to survive. We need food to thrive. We need food not just for energy, but for nourishment. And today we have a stellar lineup of experts to take you on this journey of what are the nuances and intricacies involved in the story of food and why it's important for every single person listening to this, every single household, to understand where your food comes from and the decisions you can make to improve the food systems. And so to kick things off, I would like to welcome the chairperson of the UN Committee on Food Security, on World Food Security, Mr. Tanawat Tiensen, the permanent representative of Thailand to the UN agencies in Rome. He's the vice chairperson of the 41st UN Food and Agriculture Organization Conference, chairperson, of course, of the Asia Regional Group, bureau member of the FAO Committee on Agriculture, and Mr. Tiensen was the former Assistant Director General and Senior Expert on International Livestock Trade and Cooperation at Thailand's Department of Livestock Development, Ministry of Agriculture and Cooperatives. Chair, over to you, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much for your invitation and giving me the floor. Very good morning to all of you. I am very honored to take part in this event and contribute to this important action together with all of you today. I think today is very special because today is the World Food Day that we have to echo Happy World Food Day. And we are very happy when we start our morning with our food to make sure that all of us have healthy food. And also today is very special. It is the 75th anniversary of the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, FAO. What a better occasion to talk about our food today. The Committee on World Food Security, CFS, just convened a special event on strengthening global governance on food securities and nutrition just last week. We just finished our meeting yesterday, where we have discussed precisely this topic and the urgencies to transform the food system, the way that we producing, the way that we are processing, transporting, retailing, and consuming our foods. We are at a critical turning point for humanity. Diets and food production must radically change if we want to achieve truly sustainable development and achieve the goals we have set ourselves for 2030. More than 3 billion people cannot afford healthy diets. The problem of obesity and food-linked diseases are prevalent in almost every country, as you have seen everywhere. The COVID pandemic has made things worse. On top of that, conflict rage, resulting in millions suffering from hunger, wasting, stunning. It is simply unacceptable, and it is up to us to find solution. And we need your commitment, and we need your support. Ladies and gentlemen, we know clearly that global food production is exceeding our planetary boundaries, driving climate change, biodiversity loss, the pollution of our soil, our waters, our natures, and our own bodies. After 3 days of the meeting at CFS special event, we have got a lot of ideas, thoughts, innovation, and motivation how we can achieve. And it is clear that our food system have a lot of challenges and pleasures. That's why it is time we will have a food system summit next year that can help guide us to the transformation required of us and our food system. As we heard throughout the special event last 3 days ago, we need to work together. And the Director General of World Health Organization, WHO, said it very clearly, eloquently. The only way forward for all is together. The work that CFS does through its inclusive multi-stakeholder platform reflects the need to work together for food system transformation. The Committee on World Food Security is a unique and powerful platform if used properly, bringing together governments, UN agencies, civil societies, businesses, researchers, and others to identify efficient and scalable policy solutions for fostering safe, nutritious, and healthy food for all, while protecting the most vulnerable among us. The COVID-19 pandemic has had a devastating human and socio-economic impacts. It has also exposed the fragilities of our food system and increased malnutrition, poor health, and vulnerabilities. If you are to shape a better future, we have to address the root causes of food insecurities, tackle environmental degradation and climate change, and ensure that those who work to provide us with food are protected and have decent work. Ladies and gentlemen, just yesterday, the Deputy Secretary General Amina Mohammed, who joined the CFS meeting, also mentioned that the CFS policy products, the voluntary guideline on food system and nutrition that we are developing, have the potential to be a powerful contribution to the success of the summit. These are some of the issues that the UN Food System Summit must tackle and address. To succeed, we need all stakeholders, governments, businesses, private sector, civil societies be involved. And CFS has a key mandate for all to come together and share experience and lesson learned, as well as to work on policy convergence. This will bring to support the summit in the month ahead. With your strong commitment, together we can achieve. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tiensen. So you heard it from the CFS chair on behalf of the United Nations Committee on World Food Security. This is a big call for us to understand that we can individually and collectively transform our food system. So let's begin this journey. I would like to invite, we have in our session here, a lot of smart people, I must say. But one of the smartest people I know is our next speaker. Dr. Caroline Mwongera is the global leader of policies and institution for climate action at the Alliance for Biodiversity International and SIAT. Dr. Mwongera has more than 10 years of experience as a thought leader in agriculture and climate resilience in sub-Saharan Africa. She's extremely passionate about harnessing the power of science, technology, and innovation for institutional change. Now, Dr. Mwongera, you've heard the CFS chair. You've been following the conversations about the need to transform food systems, but can I take you back? Tell us the beginning of the journey. It all starts with research and innovation. So what's the larger context for a value proposition for investing in research and technologies for transforming food systems?
Okay, thank you, Debisi. First, I would like to just say that there's a recent report that has really shown why we need to invest in research. And evidence that was released this week shows that $1 that is invested in international agricultural research generates value of $10. That's really evidence of what the value of science and research in solving the problems that we are facing today in terms of sustainable food systems. But why do we need the evidence and research? First, if we look at even what the earlier speakers talked about, the challenges that we face in the food system, policymakers need evidence on what works and how they can be able to tackle the challenges that we face. But if you look across the agricultural sector, the complexity of the challenge itself, and if you look at also, not only is the challenge very complex, but you find that it doesn't occur in isolation. Therefore, research helps to be able to address and solve these solutions. For example, we have been providing innovation to farmers to be able to address current and to be able to prepare for future challenges. But that is not only what farmers need. We also need research into how do you deliver these new technologies? How do the interventions work? So that is where research then provides value, not only to policymakers, but also to business people. If you're talking about a sustainable business and you're looking at climate change, for example, as the greatest challenge of our generation, how will you be sustainably, financially running your business if you do not tackle this challenge from a business point of view? And that's where you need the research of what you need to do, even as an investor. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mukharia. We will come back to you shortly on the cross-cutting issues of resilience, etc. Now, my next speaker, I've talked about really smart people on here. He is someone whom I'm really proud of. He is the Chief Executive Officer of Apex Commodities Exchange Limited, Mr. Ayodeji Balogun. He leads a team of experts leveraging technology, innovative science, inclusive agriculture to connect agri-entrepreneurs at the small, medium enterprise scale and smallholder farmers to commodity and financial markets. Ayodeji has over 2 decades experience trading across West Africa, as well as building and scaling businesses across sub-Saharan Africa. He serves on several capital market boards and works with several institutions on food security and financing agriculture. Now, Ayo, I would like to find out from you. Now, we've discussed the research side of food systems, but between research and you, we have farmers who produce the food, but producers are at different scales. We have small, medium, large scale agribusinesses who produce food. You, of course, are somewhere in between the producers and the consumers. You've heard the saying that, people want to eliminate middlemen from food systems or from agriculture. Can you, give us an appreciation for why we need more enterprises and service providers in between the producers and the consumers of food? Ayo.
Thank you, David. It's such a pleasure. I like to introduce myself as commodity trader, particularly because I consider myself a middleman. Like you said, so when I look at an 150 kg of grains, either directly as grains or in animal protein, which typically comes from grains, the poultry and the fishery. Now, if you look at this, a household that has 6 adults need, on the average, one smallholder farmer with 1 hectare of land to feed that household. So think of it, one household with 6 adults need one farmer working a whole year to feed them with a yield of about 1,500 kg to feed 6 adults. Now the question is, how do you connect the smallholder farmer producing 500, 600 kilometers away and make that food down to you as a consumer in the small scopes that you buy, and what happens within that value chain? And that starts to give us a sense of the power of our food systems and how, when we make deliberate direct choices, it starts to have a multiplier effect on the broader economy, on the livelihoods of smallholder farmers, who unfortunately are the poorest citizens we have in Africa, and also how it starts to create multiplier jobs across logistics, storage, transportation, trade, and the financial sector. Now, middlemen do three core things around, very important things around agriculture. So the first is to ensure that the farmers is well prepared to produce. So things around input distribution, knowledge, capital. The second part is by providing storage, they ensure that while most of our countries are rain-fed, meaning we produce food once in a year, they're able to store these foods across the 12 months of the year. So we have consistent supply year-round. And then they can also convert this food as commodities into capital, which is one thing that the commodities exchange help that smooth transition to ensure that you can move between grains and cash interchangeably. The third part of what middlemen do, which is extremely important, is to be ensure that we can connect the food finally to the markets with them producers to get it to our table. So what is needed as a sector is how do we bring transparency into this process? Thank you, DBC.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much, Ayodeji. I think that gives us a broad perspective of all that happens in between what's produced and what's consumed, not just crops, but also, of course, livestock and fisheries. Now, my next speaker follows on this line of thought. George Curia is the CEO of AGRF, a service provider that links farmers to insurance products and risk mitigation solutions so that they can, of course, confidently increase their investments on the farm. As the CEO, George provides strategic and managerial leadership to achieve revenue, profit, and business growth. He also takes the lead in helping Acre Africa achieve its mission and vision, and of course, working to ensure that climate smart practices and technologies are deployed across the agriculture production systems. Now, George, you've heard Ayodeji talk about all the services that happen between production and consumption. You, I think, provide services even further than that. You provide services all the way from the farm to the table. You've also heard the notion that agriculture is risky and the food sector is risky. Now, what's your take on this perception of risk? And where are the innovations that get you excited about de-risking the sector and increasing the flow of finance into the sector for prosperity for everyone? Over to you, George.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. DBC, and I appreciate this invitation and very exciting lineup here. But I mean, quickly, just think about the numbers. 65–80% of the population depending on agri, productivity in agri being the lowest in Africa. We've seen all that research, but only 10% of commercial financing is going into agriculture. It's a big deal, and it's telling, which really tells you that the perception by the lenders, is very poor of what we are doing. And yet this is a sector that's creating jobs. We need to feed the people, we need to feed the world. And therefore the challenge of access to finance and financial products is really steep. And it's something that we have to work together. But one of the things that we learn, and even as we innovate, and there are various innovations, we are creating digital solutions to overcome the payment issues. There's need to collect data to understand, what is happening on the field, so that the financiers then are able to assess the risk and make decisions as to whether to lend or not. And carrying on research to develop, financial and insurance products, because, when you're dealing with climate, with pests, the amount of work that needs to be done to actually arrive at a product that then can carry risk is pretty steep, and therefore a lot of research work is required. But critically is that the actors in the value chain need to come together. And I like the previous speaker and what they're doing. You are not going to overcome agriculture risk in isolation. So ACRE Africa can develop the best insurance products. But if the farmers are not using certified seeds, they're not getting agronomy support, they don't have offtake, we have post-loss issues, we're not going to achieve. And for me, the biggest innovation, and I'm starting to see this happening, and I'm very excited about it, is that the actors are coming together, so that we are creating platforms that are enabling our farmers to produce. If you think of things like 1 Acre Fund in East Africa, and them offering end-to-end services, this is where the real win is going to come. A lot of the other things have been done, collecting of data, it's there, but it's fragmented. We need to bring it together so that the lenders and the insurance people are looking at it from one box, and therefore we don't have to search every time you're doing something. And then finally is the research bit. This needs to be done over and over until we get this right. We have different climates in Africa. We cannot get a one-size-fits-all solution against climate. You know, in the West, you'll have one season. In East Africa, you've got, the mountains and several seasons. You've got pests and diseases. You've got new food varieties that are coming. So again, investments in research need to be ramped up to enable us create the correct solutions. But we're on the right track, and forums like this, I think, are really exciting to what we're trying to achieve. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, George. Thanks for neatly tying together where the challenges are, but where the opportunities and innovations are for de-risking the financial services sector, but also increasing access to services for all agripreneurs working within the agriculture and food systems. The next speaker I will invite, shall I call him Mr. Transformation? And the reason why I use that tag is when we talk of agriculture transformation, we mean a public sector enabled, private sector led process. Now, this gentleman has straddled both sides of the divide in his career. He's been in the private sector. He's currently in the public sector. Akitunde Oyebode is an economist passionate about sustainable development, finance, investment, and youth employment. He began his career as a research assistant and spent over a decade in various banking roles. He was pioneer executive secretary of the Lagos State Employment Trust Fund, where he led the development of programs that provided loans to over 6 billion naira to 10,000 beneficiaries. He was most recently special advisor to the governor of Ekiti State in Nigeria on investment, trade, and innovations. He is currently the Honorable Commissioner for Finance and Economic Development. Now, Akin, when we talk of transformation, we need the public sector to provide the enabling environment. We've heard from entrepreneurs. We've heard from George, who's an entrepreneur. We've heard from Akitunde Ayodeji Balogun, who's an entrepreneur supporting other entrepreneurs. We know that the SME sector or the MSME sector, even the large-scale sector in the agribusiness or agri-food sector, requires the enabling environment for the entire food system to thrive. Now, as someone who is responsible for providing this enabling environment, could you give us an appreciation for how you're bringing your private sector background and experience to increasing and improving the enabling environment for entrepreneurs? Over to you, Aki.
Thanks, DBC. First, I must apologize for the quality of my internet connection, so I might be a bit patchy. I think I'll make this very quick. For us, it's all about productivity uplifts, and it's essentially how do we develop the productivity uplifts that our farmers need to be more profitable. So it's focusing on our investments in irrigation and ensuring that we can enable all-season farming. It's ensuring that we can provide the storage infrastructure that allows, that reduces the loss of produce, and ultimately
okay, I think we have a technical challenge with Akin's connection.
Ensuring that we improve the quality of farm and that we can get inputs into farms cheaply, and we can also efficiently move the outputs from farms. So
okay, We seem to be having some connection challenges with Aki. If we can improve the quality of the connection, we will come back to him because he has a lot to say about this enabling environment. And I think it's important for us to hear from someone who is working in the public sector charged with providing this enabling environment for shared prosperity. In the meantime, we've talked about food from research through production, processing, distribution. We've looked at the finance, research, risks, perspectives. We touched briefly on the policy enabling environment. Now it comes to the table. Our next speaker is uniquely placed to talk to us about food, not crops, but food. What ends up on your plate and what goes into your mouth, hopefully. Chef Mukharia Swang has worked in the food industry for more than 17 years. She is a self-taught chef. In 2000, she acquired further culinary training in New York at Peter Kump Cooking School and the New School. And upon her return to South Africa, Woolworths snatched her up and she worked as a FoodWorks chef. She is the creative director and head chef for Lotcha Home Foods, a food company she started with 2 other partners. The focus of the company is to develop food products based on African recipes. She's of course also a member of the Chef's Manifesto. Chef Mukharia, it is a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you for having me, Debisi. Really is a pleasure for me to be here.
Great having you. Now, can you tell us, what is it? What's the story about the food we eat, and why is it important that we invest in transforming or be involved in the process of transforming the food systems?
Well, basically, what we need right now as the world is to eat, especially Africa, is to eat more diverse foods. Diversity in our food system is important not only for accessing nutrient-dense foods, but for also strengthening and healing the arable land that we have here in Africa. We need to focus more on quality foods instead of quantity. And calories can be empty calories. So quantity of foods is not necessarily good for us, but the quality of the food that we're eating is what we need right now. Obviously, COVID exposed the breakages in the food system. And what happened is that because a lot of African countries don't grow their own foods and they depend on imports, when lockdown happened, a lot of people went hungry because of that. We as Africans need to focus on eating good food, and we need to focus on local food production, increasing biodiversity by bringing back forgotten indigenous crops back into the food system. These crops, are good for the planet, and it's obviously crops that are nutrient dense because the whole world knows about these crops, except for us because we don't grow these crops anymore. We need to go back to that, to bring back biodiversity into the soil and into our food and into our plates. Another thing that we need to focus on as Africans going forward and healing our plate is the food processing companies that are operating in the continent. They need to focus on creating healthy foods that nourish and build us as Africans and not create diseases. They need to stop dumping their foods, the foods that the West doesn't want, all their cheap foods to us, and creating the obesities and the malnourishment that we as Africans suffer. So we as Africans really need to make sure that these companies are responsible and are held accountable, because only through accountability can they change and focus on health and not so much on profits. So us as Africans, we really need to look at our plate and be objective and see how we are going to heal ourselves and how we're going to heal our plates. We need to, again, incorporate more of our own foods that the rest of the world knows about, and we're not focusing on. So we need to go back to the drawing board as Africans and really see and say, what is it that we are good at? We've got so much arable land that is fertile, that is healthy, that can help us and feed us. We need to go back to that. Thank you. And also for anyone interested in accessing these diverse ingredients and diverse recipes, you can go onto our Chef's Manifesto website, which is the www.sdg2advocacyhub.org. There you'll find amazing recipes, awesome ingredients that you can play around with recipes that are awesome and they're easily accessible. So good food for all is important today on World Food Day. Good food includes nutrition, includes life-giving ingredients and life-giving food, because there's no point in eating when the same food is the one that's killing us.
Thank you very much, Chef Mukharia. I'd like to thank you for an excellent call for people to invest in diversifying their diets, improve their curiosity around the food they eat, be more conscious about what they eat, yes, and the power in diets to improve nutrition and health. I'd like to bring us, back to Akin Oyebode if he is still there. Akin, are you there? Okay. Since Akin is not here, or we're still having technical challenges, now I'd like to ask His Excellency Haile Mariam Desalegn to help me out before I bring him on a second time for closing remarks. Your Excellency, you were Prime Minister of Ethiopia. I want to do a full introduction before this, but I wanted to prime you to please provide comments around the policy enabling environment for private enterprise in the agri-food sector. Now, His Excellency Haile Mariam Desalegn is currently the board chair of AGRA and the AGRF Partners Group. As I mentioned earlier, he was the Prime Minister of Ethiopia, who served from August 2012 until April 2018. After leaving office, he co-founded and is the chairperson of Haile Mariam and Roman Foundation that focuses on mother and child healthcare, including the prevention of non-communicable diseases, nutrition, and climate-smart agriculture. He also serves as board member and chairperson of Tourism Ethiopia, the International Crisis Group, the Brenthurst Foundation, and the Global Steering Committee for the Campaign for Nature. I'd like to call him my chair. You know, there's a bit of pride in me welcoming you to provide this context, Your Excellency. As Prime Minister, when you were Prime Minister, what were the things you did leading governments to provide that enabling environment for the private sector in the agri-food sector? Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Devisi. First of all, I would like to say Happy World Food Day. I think, first of all, agriculture is a very complex engagement. You have to engage all sectors that should produce, process, and market, as well as work on the nutritional aspect of food. And we have to look into agriculture as a food system, not only producing crops. The main problem we had earlier is we work on productivity increment and increase our produce, but we were not so much concerned about the nutritional aspect of what we produce. But when we talk about enabling the environment for the private sector, actually, first of all, I think we shouldn't somehow neglect our smallholder farmers, because I consider them as one of the private engagement, because it is a family production, and something which my colleague was mentioning, that 65 to 70–80% of our people are engaged in agriculture, and their livelihood is based in producing agricultural food. So we need to support our smallholder farmers as a private sector, but that's not enough. I'm very much biased towards smallholder farmers, as you know, but it's not complete. So we need to have a private sector engagement on small, medium, and even micro engagement, and even including the large-scale farmers. So this needs, a policy environment that helps them to produce in an effective and efficient manner. You need to have a land allocation and land tenure system, which should be suitable for them. And in many African countries, this is not so much suitable, and government has to engage in and make land available for these guys. Sometimes, depending on the country policy, I think this is an important issue. Even when land is privately owned, then you have to facilitate that transaction very well. Otherwise, if you have so much bureaucracy in it, that will be difficult. The second issue is financing, which is, as my colleague mentioned, financing is one of the deadlocks in African agriculture, both for smallholder farmers as well as for small and medium as well as large farming. So, our banks are not ready to engage in facilitating loans to private sector agricultural produce. And Ethiopia has made such a very well developed development bank, which focuses on agriculture and gives some kind of incentives to the private sector with low cost financing. The other one is, the whole value chain of agriculture is very complex. You need to have the logistics in place, and the government should work on infrastructure, which is one of the deficits in our countries in Africa. So we need to engage in making rural areas accessible to agricultural produce to be transported and marketed. I heard one of my colleagues in this forum talking about commodity exchange. Ethiopia has a very good commodity exchange system where the market has to be efficient. And the asymmetry of information has to be closed. So I think there are a number of ways that you can mention that the private sector can engage and produce in an efficient and effective manner. And there is a lot to be done.
Thank you very much, Chair. That was great. We are receiving questions from the social media platform, and we will field a few of them if we depending on how much time we have. Thank you very much, Your Excellency, for providing that context. And you are right. The public policy framework encompasses the entire gamut. We need research, data to underpin policy, and so Caroline's work is relevant to informing public policy decisions. We also need public policy to provide that enabling environment, for the private sector to move forward, for people like George Curia and those working in the financial services sector, for Ayodeji and the people working in the aggregation processing sector. And we have seen, success. I remember in my former role, we would talk about the role of research in transforming the white pea bean in Ethiopia. The white pea bean moved from a crop that was valued at about $5 to $6 million a year to over $200 million, within a decade. And why? And that was because farmers were connected to markets in Europe through research. Research enabled the farmers to improve productivity. And of course, you had the aggregators who helped with the aggregation, quality control, processing, exports, and trade. And of course, public policy also enables trade within countries, between countries, and around the world. This year, we saw the inauguration of the Africa Commodities Continental Free Trade Area that is based in Ghana. And we saw the handover ceremony between the government of Ghana and the African Union. And we think trade will provide that stimulus, that added stimulus for African economies to trade further with themselves and better and more efficiently with the rest of the world. Now, I would like to invite all speakers to kindly turn on their cameras. I have a couple of questions for you as we bring our session to a close. My first question is, how are food systems specific to Africa? What aspects of the food systems are specific to Africa that separates it from the rest of the world? Is there anything about African food systems that is unique? And if not, can we then say transforming food systems is not a local question or a local challenge, but it's a global challenge that every single individual should be involved in?
I love that, DBC.
Okay, Ayo.
I think one word is fragmentation, and the fact that our poorest populations are foundation and the food sustainability. We have to think of it in an inclusive manner. So it's that tension between efficiency and inclusivity.
Okay, so there is that tension. There is that tension. Dr. Mongera, from your experience working in an international research organization, do you have any perspectives on this? Is there anything specific to
Yes.
Africa around food systems?
Yeah, so for that question, DBC, I would say that transforming the food systems is a global challenge, but with local solutions. So very specific solutions for Africa. For example, what we see, and what I can give an example of the alliance where I work, is that we are trying to address the challenges that are very specific to Africa. Like what we are releasing now in terms of varieties of beans, as an example, is that we are looking at how do we have varieties that can be able to withstand short duration of the seasons. So we have released, for example, a variety that can be able to mature in between 75 to 85 days, while at the same time that variety has been biofortified, that is enriched with zinc and iron, because we find these are some of the deficiencies that we find in the population that we need to address. But also looking at beans being a woman crop, where we want to find also, can it be more marketable? Can it be able to have better cooking ability? So we really need to have farmer-centric innovations. And that means we have to go local to address the global challenge of the food systems.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mongera. Chef, it's Swang. Now I have a question here for you. How can young people chart a career for themselves as chefs in Africa? What's the career path?
Well, first of all, you need passion to do this work, because it's a lot of work. You know, people always think being a chef is easy, just cooking in the kitchen, but it takes more than just that. So you need passion. You need to understand your role in that system. You really need to understand the role of chefs in the system. The role of chefs in the system is not just about cooking, but it's also about feeding and encouraging people to eat healthy food that brings life. And also it's about showcasing food that is grown within your community. So we want to, as chefs, what we do is we focus on bringing to life the food that the farmers grow, the food that the companies or whoever processors make. So as a chef, it's your responsibility to bring those things to life. So South Africa, I know I'm from South Africa, there's a lot of chef schools here. I'm not sure about the rest of the continent, but what's happened now is that we need, as South African, as Africans, we need more schools that focus, that are African-centric, that are not just based on French cooking, because we've got so much to give as Africans to the world. And our food is so important. And for us to bring it to the fore as chefs, we need all players involved. So to be a chef, you need to have more passion than just cooking. You need to see yourself as what do they call it? As somebody who's basically bringing in, who's focusing and also shining the spotlight on food in your community. So it's a big responsibility, and I think it's important for people to take being a chef as that responsibility, because as Africans we really need to change our food systems, and we really need to have everybody involved, especially the chefs, because we get everyone to eat all sorts of things. So if the chef says it's great, everybody gets on it. So you know, to be a chef, you need passion, but you also need to understand your role in the whole food system, so you're more effective.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, Chef Mukharia. We really need to get the next generation, the young generation involved. We need younger chefs. We need the youth involved in private enterprise. We need the youth involved in public policy. It's not just about business. When we talk about opportunities for the next generation, for the youth, we need them in government. We need them in the boardroom. We need them at the, what would you call the workstation, the kitchen station, Chef Mukharia?
Of course, it's the kitchen station.
Yes, we need them. We need them all in the kitchen stations. We need them to be curious about the food that they consume. We need them to be creative. And we hope that through the Chef's Manifesto, you can collectively show the way. We think there's a lot of information that can be put out there on information and how people can get engaged in the food that they consume. Now, to bring this all home, I would like to call on my chair, His Excellency Haile Mariam Desalegn, to provide closing remarks and give a call. You know, Your Excellency, what is the call to Africans and for the rest of the world on food systems? Over to you, sir.
Thank you, WC. As you can see, everyone has a stake in food systems. You know, we have very specialized people who are presenting today. So you can see it's a very diverse and that needs, you know, to have every African to get involved in the food systems summit. You know, you have to understand what the food system is all about. So I call upon all of us Africans to take part in the coming food systems summit. You know, food systems present a complex challenge which calls for a systematic approach to problem solving, and we have a number of problems that has to be addressed. So we need a summit. So everybody has to be part of that summit. Again, this approach will require us to rethink food system governance, not only that, policy making, and also implementation into the play. We can create a food system that delivers sufficient and nutritious food that does not impact the environment, our environment negatively. This should be positively impacting. And our past mistake is we are making our environment to degrade, and that has to be addressed. And we have to create a sustainable and dignified jobs, especially for our youth. And I'm very happy that there is a youth network involved in this discussion today, an African Youth Network, which is a very essential platform to bring our young people into agriculture and food systems. So that is also a very important aspect. And we have to have a shared prosperity for Africa. And without the food system in a proper sense, then I think we cannot have a sustainable prosperity in our continent. As a latecomers in the economic ladder, I think Africa has huge opportunity to engage in. And I think we should be at the forefront in the food summit at this time. So everybody on this planet has a stake in food systems, and we must all get involved. You have the power to make changes to the food you consume. As our chef has said just now, we have our African way, our homegrown food, nutritious food system. So we need to, to air out and bring our African cuisine into play. The decisions you make can improve your health, improve the environment, and create sustainable jobs and increase prosperity in Africa. So let's work together to create a food system that can nourish people, the planet, and foster prosperity. This is a time for change, and the change is coming, and it's now. So let's be engaged and let's be part of this global food system summit.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Thank you very much, Your Excellency. This is great. We thank Your Excellency and all our speakers for an engaging session. For everybody else out there, we encourage you to sign up as a food systems hero. Have your voice heard.